Hey, this is just a quick presentation to talk about some of the issues that we've just encountered with the Hogan-Pancost flood study. So here we have, of course, the 100-year and the 500-year floodplain. The dark blue shows the 100-year, the light blue shows the 500-year. What the developer is proposing to do is develop a 1,000-foot long, 40-foot wide flood conveyance channel along the west side of this property. So here we have a picture of the 1969 flood. As we see, we had extensive flooding along that Dry Creek Ditch corridor. Well, it turns out that that is actually an old alluvial flood channel of South Boulder Creek. We in South Boulder are basically victims of geography. Here we have that 69 flood now looking over the Hogan-Pancost property. And again, we can see those extensive flood waters flowing, even flood waters backing up into Kewanee Drive. Now what they're proposing to do, shown on the bottom here, and this is showing east is, we're looking from the east to the west on that map. Here's a picture that shows then the flood channel in the 69 flood from the south. And likewise, here is a photo taken from Kewanee Drive looking south. That's the Hale House in the background there. Okay. So, the design of the flood channel is based on a single number, 177 cubic feet per second, the peak flow from the FEMA 100-year flood. They do no further analysis. No modeling was done to determine flood behavior. No hydrographs were used to determine how fast the floods come in, the overall storm duration, and the overall volume of it. We feel that this is a real problem. The city has the data, the city has the hydrographs, but they weren't used here. Okay, well let's take a little closer look at this flood channel. Again, it's a 1,000-foot long, 40-foot wide, constructed flood channel in an active floodplain. We have a path and a culvert on the left, that's on the south side. We also have the Kewanee Road crossing and a culvert on the right. We also have a couple of homes that are very close to that flood channel. So let's take a closer look there. So as we see, now we're looking where the flood channel is flowing up to the north. Turns out that those two homes, the Carpenter home on the north and the Hale home on the south, have only a few foot setback from their property line. They're only about 15 feet from the actual edge of the house. Not their property line, but their actual houses are that close to the flood channel. Furthermore, on the east side of the flood channel, the developer is proposing to bring in 3 feet of fill to build homes there. So what we have is a very narrow channel, 40-foot wide, that's sized to hold a single 100-year flood. Where all that whole drainage area, the old alluvial flood channel of South Boulder Creek, all of that water and all the local drainage is going to flow through this narrow little spot. Well, let's take even a closer look here. Again, we have the Hale home shown on the left, outlined in red. On the right, we can see that they're going to be bringing in 3 feet of fill. It's at least, if not higher, in elevation than the Hale house. The question we have then is yes, in a perfect world, when you have exactly that amount of flooding flowing through there, that channel can hold it. But what happens in a not so perfect world? What happens when that culvert under Kewanee blocks? What happens when there's turbulence in the flow? What happens when there's the storm water runoff from the actual development flowing into this? None of that is addressed in the report. And we feel that it's going to bring a huge amount of risk and potentially a huge increase in flooding to those homes in the area, as we see here. Okay, so we have asked the city a number of times, dating back even more than a year ago, where are the hydrographs? Where's the detailed flood data that shows how the flood behaves over time of South Boulder Creek. Mind you, they have this data. The answer is that stormwater conveyance systems are just designed around peak flows, and they do not evaluate hydrographs for conveyance systems. Furthermore, they go on to state that the city did not and is not going to provide hydrographs from the Mike flood data, as this requires post-processing of the results that the city does not need for its studies. So the bottom line here is that the city has detailed data that shows how fast the floods can come in, how long they last, and how much overall flood volume there will be. None of that data has been produced. As a matter of fact, they refuse to produce that data. We feel that this is wrong and egregious and needs to be addressed.